January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. This comes as Miami-Dade police bust a man this weekend in Doral. He's charged with trafficking a teenage girl.
Right now at 4:30, the state attorney's office uncovering a shocking case of human trafficking.
Authorities say the victim was lured from out of state, then had her baby held hostage.
Tonight, police say they nabbed the ringleader of a human trafficking ring in Miami Beach.
And now a man accused of human trafficking is caught and cuffed.
The man tracked after his alleged victim was rescued here in South Florida.
He told me he would keep me safe.
I thought he loved me.
I don't remember who I was.
I haven't seen my family.
He took advantage of me.
Tortured me.
I was too scared to leave.
In the shadows of our cities and communities, a silent epidemic thrives. Human trafficking.
I fell in love with an older man when I was 17. He told me he would provide me with the life of my dreams, but instead provided me with the life of my nightmares, selling me for sex in order to live the life of his dreams. I was so in love I didn't realize what was happening.
According to the International Labor Organization, an estimated 25 million people are victims of human trafficking worldwide. These victims are targeted based on their vulnerabilities and coerced into the life by threats of serious harm to or physical restraint, psychological manipulation, and document confiscation, to name a few.
I was raped by a family friend at a young age and later recruited by a friend to be trafficked for 5 years. I was sold for sex to both men and women who were often violent and was terrified of my trafficker.
A modern-day plague preying upon vulnerable people, human trafficking survivors face many challenges after being rescued from the life.
So there are so many challenges that victims of sexual exploitation and/or labor exploitation experience legally, emotionally, and psychologically, and financially. And so depending on the gravity of the crime, the gravity and severity, the length of time, the relationship, how much abandonment occurred. In other words, what do I mean by that? I mean, once a pimp or the perpetrator gets a hold of that victim, how long is she under his control or manipulation, and she's detached, right, from friends, family, people that love her, all that kind of isolation, manipulation, control, all eventually wears down on a victim completely. All of those challenges are obstacles that a lot of these victims fear, they face, and they seem insurmountable because if they try to reach out to any of those services or some sort of a safety net or lifeline to get out of this, he's right there. And they never really are sure and confident that he's not coming back for them.
Ranking third in the U.S. for human trafficking, Florida State Attorney Catherine Rundle saw a need and established Florida's Human Trafficking Task Force in 2012. A task force dedicated to rescuing, protecting, and helping survivors of human trafficking during the rescue and recovery process.
So we try to give them the tools, we try to give them the reassurance. We have a safety net of services. I mean, it's just incredible. If you went to the forum, you saw that room was full of 100+ people or so. They all have a role. They all care about how we're going to rescue these victims, but also get them back on a road to recovery. The foundation that we need to get them so that they can uplift themselves and go on to have a great life, hopefully, right?
Following rescue, the tough journey to recovery begins. Recent trauma studies have deepened our understanding of trauma and its impact on survivors of human trafficking. Besides the terror and pain of physical and sexual violence, many survivors face psychological trauma that, if not dealt with, can lead them back into the life. Savannah Parvu, a human trafficking survivor and advocate, shares the emotions she experienced during the early stages of her recovery.
During the early stages of my recovery process, I experienced a lot of fear. Fear that I was going to be in trouble for the things that happened to me while I was being trafficked. Fear that people in the community and at work were going to find out what happened to me. And also fear that my trafficker and his friends were going to come and find me and I would face retaliation for getting help.
According to the U.S. Department of Health and Services, trauma is a defining life event with a complex course which can profoundly shape a victim's sense of self and others. The primary goal of the services offered to survivors should be understanding, empowerment, and growth. In a study conducted by the National Library of Medicine, the results showed that among the 204 trafficked girls and women, Sexual violence is associated with high levels of depression, anxiety, and PTSD, with PTSD being the highest. Laura Hincapi, a therapist and leader of Project Goals at Christie's House in Miami, shares the impact trauma can have on the life of a survivor.
It depends on the person, of course, and their situation and their context. But trauma can impact your life in so many ways. Obviously, mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, those are probably the most common ones. We also see a lot girls who, find kind of their own way to cope and kind of survive with that, but then they are impacted in other ways. For example, like their belief system. So they might have certain beliefs that might make their lives harder, feeling that they can't trust anybody, feeling that they're alone in the world, things like that. So it can just range from all kinds of mental health disorders to just attitudes and beliefs about themselves, about the world, and just other people in general.
The recovery process for me was extremely difficult. For so many years, I did everything I could to numb the pain and disassociate. So when I finally went through therapy, it was as if I was emotionally feeling a lot of things for the very first time.
But how can survivors cope with all they face? Who will be there for them? Who can help them? Organizations like Place of Hope, who serve both children and adults who have been sexually exploited, play a big role in providing the survivors with the resources needed to heal.
So one of the three most important things a survivor needs, I would say someone to truly listen, to where they feel safe, they feel that they can depend on you. So much of their life, no matter what has happened to them, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, no matter who it was, their vulnerabilities have been exploited. So they've been blackmailed in some way. They need a person that they can trust, that they feel like is not going to let them down again and again, because they have already been let down in so many ways. So I would say a real person that understands how fragile their livelihood is if they let them down.
Modeling what a family looks like for young survivors. Place of Hope shows children what a neighborhood looks like and provides them with hope for their futures.
Our education and enrichment program for us is a non-negotiable. It is so critical. So again, it's not only getting them here and unpacking some of that brokenness and providing shelter and food and clothing, but it's what is that next step? Every child at Place of Hope who has been eligible to graduate high school or get their GED has. Every single one of our youth have gone on to college, a vocation, a trade, some sort of post-secondary. We spend so much time, and we're in this beautiful enrichment building. We have one of these on each one of our campuses, and it's specifically for education and enrichment. So all of those added layers, exposing them to basketball, team sport, journalism, debate, things like this, that they can sew back in and realize, oh, wow, I really enjoy showing them, modeling for them, right? Because you can say all the nice things, you can say all the right things, but if they've never seen it, they don't know what you're talking about. So it's showing them, it's modeling for them what stability looks like, what love looks like, what it really looks like to have compassion and care for a person without wanting something in return.
And this is the particular family that made this cottage possible. And then in 2019, so we've been on this campus since 2001 to 2006. These cottages have been built out. So we're coming on 24 years. So lots of kids have come through. So over time, it starts to need a little refresher. So in 2019, the same couple that built the gym also came through, and their gift in 2019 was to renovate all the homes. So all of them were recently renovated.
One of the other non-negotiable in our budget is family summer vacations. So many kids that are in our care have never been to the beach. We have a child, actually with a sibling group of 5. 2 of the 5 lived their entire life in a closet. So at 17 years old, when he was let out of when he escaped, he had never really seen the world before. So to take them to the beach and experience the beach and swimming and surfing, marine life, we take them to Loggerhead, the Rapids, we take them to Washington. Some of our girls just went to Tennessee to see the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they rode, that train there, and they're creating those memories. And
for most victims, reaching out for support after leaving the life is hard. They feel shame and are filled with fear, but they need help. They need organizations to reach them where they are.
During childhood, I experienced neglect, abuse, and human trafficking at the hands of my drug-addicted mother. When I was 13 years old, I was placed into foster care. I watched both of my parents try to commit suicide by cutting their wrists. I navigated through foster care, self-harm, and trauma until finding solace and purpose through faith. Despite the darkness, I emerged as a resilient advocate, becoming the first in my family to graduate high school and testifying numerous times during the 2019 Florida legislative session to help pass a bill that requires the staff of public lodging establishments to be trained on human trafficking.
Callie Fabel, a therapist and director of Project Gold, a drop-in center for children who have been sexually exploited, talks about how her organization provides for survivors in South Florida.
So here at Project Gold, we essentially provide wraparound services. Once we do the intake, members, we call them members, can receive therapeutic services, family therapy, individual therapy. They can be signed a mentor, which has kind of lived similar experiences and kind of mentor through the next steps. We have career and educational support, which is called Bridges to the Future. And so it's maybe helping members get a proper school setting, enroll in GED, find a specialized school for them. Also help members create a resume, apply for jobs. We'll buy uniforms, interview clothes.
According to the Counter Trafficking Data Collaborative, the majority of human trafficking victims are children 9 to 17 years old. Children forced into prostitution, children sexually and physically tortured, abused, and marked off many times until they become adults and are seen responsible for something they were forced into. Helping survivors of human trafficking with resources and support to rebuild their lives is something offered by many organizations like Place of Hope, Sail of Freedom, Path to Freedom, and the Gold Project. Not often highlighted in the media, each resource, each step in a survivor's path is essential to their recovery and reintegration into society. While resources continue to move into the digital space, so does human trafficking.
I think the digital aspect of it is where we need to be more informed, especially when it comes to prevention education to younger kids. You know, the average age for minors to sort of get into human trafficking is 12 in America. And so when you think about social media, right, and these pimps, often called like Romeo pimps, right, because they sweet talk these 12-year-old girls who are, you know, maybe starting to, you know, their hormones are shifting, maybe get their period for the first time, you know, so they start to be a little bit more self-conscious about the way they look, and nobody likes them, and, you know, all the feelings you get for a typical kid that age. And all it takes is for one guy, whoever that person is on the other end, usually never the photos that they post, you know, and it's like, hey, you look really beautiful, you know, like what's going on. And all this person needs to know is just one vulnerability of this child for them to exploit that to start the train of events of ultimately exploiting her for sexual purposes.
The digital human trafficking industry is $1 billion industry, turning a profit of over $150 billion a year. Experts continue to warn about the rise of digital human trafficking, since the anonymity afforded by the internet and the rapid evolution of technology creates a complex landscape that is difficult to monitor and regulate. But all hope is not lost. Many organizations who offer resources to human trafficking survivors also empower individuals with the knowledge to report suspicious online behavior and disrupt the supply chain of exploitation. Many survivors in the stories shared have taken their experiences and used them to continue advocating and helping people who have fallen into the life they once did. As we shine a light on the darkness of human trafficking, let us not forget that it's not enough to rescue survivors. We must ensure they have access to the support and resources they need to rebuild their lives. These organizations spread a lifeline for survivors, guiding them through the challenging journey of recovery.